She's too poor to join us." The words weren't whispered. They weren't softened with pity or hesitation. They came sharp and clear through my mother's speakerphone, slicing into the silence of my kitchen. I froze, coffee mug halfway to my lips, my chest tightening as though someone had slammed a door on my ribs. Aunt Linda laughed faintly on the other end, as if Mom's remark was nothing but common sense. "You're right, Rebecca," she said. "Why waste money on someone who can't contribute anyway?" I stood there, eyes fixed on the marble countertop I'd paid for in cash, in a house fully owned by me, reviewing quarterly reports for Azure Coast Holdings, my investment company. And in that moment, irony pressed down on me like a cruel joke. The very vacation they were planning, the luxurious beach escape my mother was bragging about, was taking place at my resort. My pulse quickened, not with shame, but with something hotter, something darker. Rage? Betrayal? Perhaps both. 18 years of being the overlooked daughter, the disappointment, the one they spoke about with sighs and excuses, the one who played around with food trucks while her siblings built real careers. And now, as they schemed their glamorous getaway, they decided I was too poor to sit at the family table. I set the coffee mug down, fingers trembling, not from weakness, but from the weight of revelation. They had no idea that I had built a real estate empire worth nearly $50 million. No idea that I had been quietly underwriting their businesses, their boutiques, their law practices, their so-called success. But they were about to find out. Because this time, I wasn't going to swallow the insult. This time, I wasn't going to let them dictate my worth. If they wanted a vacation without me, they'd get one, just not the one they imagined. And what happened next would flip their perfect vacation into a disaster they would never forget. Before I continue, I want to know what you think. Would you forgive your family if they excluded you this way, or would you take revenge? Comment below, subscribe to the channel for more jaw-dropping stories, and don't forget to like this video. It helps us bring even more unbelievable tales your way. The next morning, I sat at my desk in my home office, sunlight spilling across spreadsheets and neatly stacked reports. My phone buzzed with the family group chat exploding in excitement. Photos of swimsuits ordered, excursions discussed, endless chatter about our luxury getaway. My name appeared nowhere. Not once. I clicked into the Azure Coast Resort reservation system, my fingers steady as I typed Thompson family, Rebecca Thompson. There it was. 8 guests, 4 ocean view suites, presidential package. Over $18,000 for the week. My stomach tightened, not from doubt, but from disbelief at their audacity. The same people who claimed they couldn't afford extra rooms for failures like Sarah had just booked the most expensive tier my resort offered. I picked up the phone. "Good morning, Marcus," I said, my voice calm but edged with steel. Marcus was the resort's general manager, a man I trusted implicitly. "Good morning, Miss Williams," he replied warmly. "Yes, I see we have a Thompson family reservation for next week. Very extravagant. I need it canceled." There was a pause. "Canceled? Jennifer, it's nearly Thanksgiving week. That's an $18,000 booking. The rooms, the staff, the menus, all already in motion." "I understand," I said, my jaw tightening. "Cancel it immediately." His tone lowered, cautious. "If I may ask, why? Is there a problem with payment?" "It's a personal matter," I replied. "Just tell them this. The owner has requested their removal. Nothing more." Silence stretched, then Marcus exhaled slowly. "Understood. I'll make the call." I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding, not with guilt, but with satisfaction. For years, my family had dismissed me, looked at me as the outsider, the embarrassment. Now, they were about to feel what exclusion really meant. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Mom's face flashed across the screen. I let it buzz twice before answering. "Sarah," she said breathlessly, panic lacing her tone. "You won't believe this. The Azure Coast Resort just called. They canceled our entire reservation. They said the owner requested it." "The owner! We've lost the deposit and every other luxury place is booked solid." I forced sympathy into my voice. "That's terrible, Mom. Did they explain why?" "No, nothing. Just owner's orders. Who does that? We had everything planned, everything perfect." I bit back a smile. "I'm sorry to hear that. Maybe I can..." make some calls. I know people in the industry." Her sigh of relief was immediate. "Oh, Sarah, if you could help us, that would be amazing. You're such a sweetheart." But inside, I was already planning something else. Helping them? Yes. But not in the way they expected. Because their perfect family vacation was about to take a detour they would never forget. After hanging up, I sat in silence for a moment, my fingers tapping lightly against the polished wood of my desk. My mother's panic still echoed in my ears, her desperate tone, the fear of losing face in front of the family. For years, she had made me feel small, unworthy, like a shadow at the edge of their carefully curated success. But now she was the one begging. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to Marcus, my resort manager. "Please inform Mrs. Thompson that, due to the owner's generosity, alternative accommodations have been arranged. Complimentary, but not at Azure Coast. Place them at the Seaside Inn." The Seaside Inn, a modest 2-star property I'd purchased 6 months earlier as a renovation project. Clean, safe, functional, but stripped of luxury. Tiny rooms, no oceanfront balconies. Breakfast meant stale muffins and lukewarm coffee, the kind of place my family would normally sneer at. And now it would be their rescue. Minutes later, Marcus replied, "Understood. Executing now." An hour passed before my phone lit up again. Mom's voice was bubbling with relief this time. "Sarah, you won't believe it. The manager called us back. He said thanks to the owner's generosity, they found us free accommodations at another hotel. Completely complimentary." "That's great," I said, steadying my voice so it wouldn't betray the smirk tugging at my lips. "It's not as fancy as Azure Coast," she continued, "but free is free. How lucky are we? Oh, sweetheart, thank you. I know you must have made some calls. You're amazing." Her words should have warmed me, but instead, they cut. Because the only time my family seemed to value me was when I could fix something for them, when I could play the invisible hand that solved their problems, without ever being acknowledged for the power I truly held. That night, I checked their new reservation at the Seaside Inn. 4 cramped rooms, basic amenities. I could already imagine Mom's forced smile as she tried to dress up the reality in carefully staged Instagram posts. And while they settled for threadbare sheets and fluorescent lighting, I began making my own arrangements. Presidential suite at Azure Coast. Full VIP treatment. A photographer to document every detail of my stay. Social media posts highlighting the return of the resort's owner. Because this time, the world, including my family, would know exactly who Sarah Williams was. And when those glossy photos went live, their illusion of superiority would shatter beyond repair. The first photos appeared on Instagram the very next morning. A blurry snapshot of a cramped hotel room, beige curtains that didn't quite close, a nightstand lamp with a flickering bulb. The caption read, "Having such a unique experience at this charming local inn. Family first. Grateful." I nearly laughed out loud. Mom was trying so hard to spin gold out of straw, but I could see the cracks in her smile. The bedspread looked like it belonged in a roadside motel, not a luxury vacation spot. The comments poured in quickly. "Wait, this doesn't look like Azure Coast. Isn't this different from the resort you showed us? Looks cozy, but not quite 5 stars." The illusion was unraveling faster than she could patch it. Meanwhile, I was at Azure Coast, my Azure Coast, checking into the presidential suite. My assistant had arranged everything exactly as I asked. A chilled bottle of Dom Perignon sat on the marble counter. Fresh orchids bloomed on the dining table. The suite overlooked the turquoise ocean, sunlight spilling across the infinity pool below. And just as planned, a photographer discreetly documented it all. Click. Me stepping onto the private balcony, coffee in hand, silk robe brushing against my skin. Click. The general manager personally greeting me with a bouquet of roses. Click. The staff lined up by the poolside, applauding their returning owner. By mid-afternoon, Azure Coast's official Instagram posted the carousel. "Welcome back to our valued owner, Sarah Williams, enjoying another perfect stay at the presidential suite. A true visionary behind Azure Coast's success." The post exploded instantly. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments. My family couldn't possibly miss it. Sure enough, my phone rang before I could even finish my champagne. Mom's contact photo flashed on the screen, her voice trembling as she blurted out the words, "Sarah, are you at Azure Coast? Are you the owner they're talking about?" I let a pause stretch, just long enough for her heartbeat to quicken. "Yes, Mom," I said softly. "I am." The silence that followed was deafening. And I knew. This was only the beginning. The Seaside Inn was just a taste of what it felt like to be treated as less than. But the real lesson? Oh, that was still to come. Because soon they'd understand exactly who they had underestimated for so many years. The call came again, this time with both of my parents on speaker. Their voices overlapped, frantic and defensive. "Sarah, is it true?" Dad demanded. "Do you really own Azure Coast?" "Yes," I said evenly. "I bought it 3 years ago when the previous owners were drowning in debt." "But why didn't you say anything?" Mom's voice cracked, a mix of outrage and disbelief. "We thought you were struggling. You thought I was too poor for family vacation," I cut in sharply. "Your words, not mine." There was silence. I could almost hear the shame creeping into the room on their end of the line. Dad cleared his throat. "You have to understand, Sarah. We just assumed that I was a failure, that I wasn't worth including. I let the questions hang, each one a knife. Funny how you never assumed success. Funny how you never bothered to ask." Mom tried again, her voice quieter now. We didn't mean it like that." But I remembered every word. "She's too poor. She'll drag us down. She's not real family anymore." Those words had sliced me open the moment I overheard them. And now they burned in their ears. I took a slow breath. "You've spent years judging me by the size of my paycheck. You built this vacation on appearances, on trying to impress relatives, and yet the very resort you bragged about is mine." The silence stretched. Then Dad muttered something under his breath. "This doesn't make sense. If you had all this money, why live so modestly?" I almost laughed. "Because I don't need a mansion or flashy cars to prove my worth. I let you all believe what you wanted, because I wanted to see how you treat me when you thought I had nothing." And I had my answer. Mom's breathing grew ragged. "Sarah, please. We didn't know. We never would have—" "You did know," I interrupted. "You knew enough to exclude me. You knew enough to make me feel small. And now you know the truth. The failure you pushed aside is the one who held this family up in silence for years." I let the words linger, savoring the weight of them. "Sarah," Dad finally whispered. "What happens now?" I smiled, though they couldn't see it. "That depends entirely on how honest you're ready to be. Because the game has changed, and I'm done playing the role you wrote for me." The line went quiet, but I knew the confrontation was far from over. They'd have just realized who held all the cards, and they weren't yet ready for the rules I was about to set. The first domino fell within hours. At 9:15 a.m., Dad called again, his voice trembling. "Sarah, something's wrong. 3 of our biggest contracts just got canceled out of nowhere. The company said the owner requested it." "That's right," I replied calmly. "Because I was the owner who arranged those contracts for you in the first place. I gave you a lifeline when your construction business was collapsing, and you never knew it." There was a long pause, then his voice cracked. "So, it was you? All along?" "Yes. And now it's over." By noon, my phone was buzzing with back-to-back calls. Mom's boutique had mysteriously lost its bulk orders. Marcus, my brother, left me a frantic voicemail. "Sarah, what's going on? My law firm just lost 3 corporate clients overnight. They said their retainer agreements were canceled. Do you know anything about this?" I did. I knew everything. For years, I had been their invisible safety net. I was the shadow investor in Uncle Robert's restaurant. I was the silent lender behind Aunt Linda's real estate ventures. I was the one quietly funneling business their way, propping them up while they laughed about my so-called failure. And now, I was the one pulling it all back. Each phone call was the same: panic, confusion, bargaining. My relatives were drowning in the sudden reality of what life looked like without me silently underwriting their success. "Sarah, please," Mom begged on her fourth call of the day. "We'll lose everything." I leaned back in my chair, letting her desperation wash over me like music. "Then maybe I'll finally understand what it feels like to stand alone, like you left me to do for years." Her sobs cracked through the line, but I didn't soften. For once, I was in control, and they were forced to face the truth. Their comfortable lives had been built on the very daughter they discarded. That night, the family group chat lit up like wildfire. Messages poured in, accusations, apologies, desperate explanations. Some blamed me for being cruel, others begged me to reconsider. But the tone was the same: fear. And as I scrolled through their frantic words, I realized something powerful. I had become the storm they never saw coming. The next move? That was mine to make. And I knew exactly where to strike next. The whispers started before breakfast. It was Wednesday morning when Azure Coast Resort's official Instagram account posted a series of glossy photos. Me, in sunglasses, sipping champagne on the balcony of the presidential suite. Me, shaking hands with the general manager while staff lined up to greet me. The caption read, "Welcoming back our esteemed owner, Sarah Williams, to the Azure Coast Resort. A true visionary who turned this 5-star property into one of the nation's top destinations." Within minutes, the likes and comments poured in. Business magazines shared the post. Travel bloggers reposted it. And of course, my family saw it too. By 8:30 a.m., my phone was vibrating nonstop. Mom's name flashed on the screen first. "Sarah, what is this?" she cried, her voice sharp with disbelief. "You own the Azure Coast Resort? The resort we booked for family vacation?" "Yes, Mom," I said evenly. "The very same one where you told everyone I was too poor to afford a room." Silence. For a moment, all I could hear was her shallow breathing. Then Dad's muffled voice in the background. "She owns it? The whole place?" "Yes," I confirmed. "And when I canceled your reservation, it wasn't the faceless owner who rejected you. It was me. I treated you exactly the way you treated me." The sound of her chair scraping against the floor came through the line. "But why didn't you say anything before? Why didn't you tell us?" "Because I wanted to see how you'd treat me without money in the equation. And guess what? You failed." By noon, the humiliation spread beyond our private conversations. Extended relatives had seen the posts. Old family friends were sharing articles about my resort. Suddenly, everyone knew the truth. That the so-called poor daughter was actually the wealthiest member of the family, the one whose quiet empire had been funding them all along. At the Seaside Inn, where my family had been downgraded to cramped rooms and stale continental breakfasts, they sat in stunned silence, scrolling through their phones. Photos of me in luxury, comments praising my success. And every single like, every single share was another dagger to their pride. That night, my brother Marcus finally texted, "Why didn't you tell us, Sarah? Why humiliate us like this?" I typed back slowly, deliberately. "Because you already humiliated me first." I just returned the favor, publicly. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the forgotten one in the family. I felt like the one holding all the cards. But this was only the beginning. The real reckoning was still to come. The calls came like waves crashing against a seawall, loud, relentless, and desperate. Dad was the first. "Sarah, honey, there's been some kind of mistake. The contracts for Thompson Construction just got canceled. They said your company terminated them. Surely you can fix this." I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, my jaw stiff. "No mistake, Dad. Those contracts were mine all along. Without my backing, your business would have collapsed in 2019. I was your silent partner, not fate or luck. And now that you've made it clear I'm not family, my support ends here." Silence. Then a choked, "Sarah, please. You don't understand. Without those contracts, we're finished." "I understand perfectly. You treated me like I was nothing. Now you'll see how much of your something came from me." Next was Mom. She was nearly hysterical. "Jennifer's boutique just lost its biggest orders overnight. Do you know anything about this?" "Yes, Mom," I said coldly. "Because those orders came from companies I created. companies I've now pulled. Her voice cracked. You can't do this. My shop. You already did this to yourself, I cut her off. You built your image on sand, Mom. I was the foundation, and you chose to bury me under it. Then came Marcus, my golden boy brother. His tone was angrier than desperate. Half my corporate clients just dropped me this morning. Are you behind this? Yes. He swore under his breath. Do you have any idea what this does to my practice? About the same thing you did to me every time you called me a failure. You owe me years of respect you never gave. Now you owe yourself new clients you never earned. By the afternoon, the ripple effect spread. Uncle Robert's restaurant lost its anonymous investor. Aunt Linda's real estate loans were being called in. Cousins messaged me in disbelief, asking if I'd really been bankrolling them all this time. For 5 years, I had been their safety net. Now I was the one pulling it away. And the truth hit them harder than any financial loss. Their poor daughter, their unsuccessful sister, had been their silent savior. That night, the family group chat went eerily quiet. No planning, no bragging, no judgment, just silence. I leaned back in my chair, staring out at the ocean from my private balcony at Azure Coast. The waves rolled steady, endless, powerful, just like me. And for the first time, my family was finally learning how it felt to stand on their own without me propping them up. But I wasn't finished yet. The most devastating lesson was still waiting. Thanksgiving morning dawned bright and golden over the Azure Coast, but for my family, it was anything but. I had arranged for the resort's official Instagram account to post a series of high-gloss photos at 9 a.m. sharp. Me arriving in a sleek black car, the general manager personally holding open the door staff, lined up in crisp uniforms, welcoming me like royalty. The caption was simple but lethal. Welcome home, Miss Sarah Williams, owner of Azure Coast Resorts. Thank you for leading our vision of luxury and hospitality. The post went viral within hours. Guests commented with admiration, business leaders congratulated me, and industry insiders shared it across LinkedIn and Facebook. But the most important audience wasn't the world. It was my family, crammed into their downgraded seaside inn rooms, scrolling on their phones in stunned silence. At 10:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Aunt Carol, then Uncle Robert, then Mom. One by one, they called, desperate to confirm what they were seeing. Sarah, this can't be true, Mom's voice trembled. You own Azure Coast? The same resort we were just kicked out of? Yes, Mom. The resort you said I was too poor to stay in. The resort where you booked the most expensive suite while cutting me out of the family trip? But why didn't you tell us? Because you didn't want the truth. You wanted an image, and I let you build it, until today. By lunchtime, the cracks in their carefully crafted facade were spreading. Relatives who once praised my brother's law career were whispering about his lost clients. Aunt Linda was fending off angry lenders. Uncle Robert's restaurant had closed its doors, a temporarily shut-down sign taped to the glass. And then came the final blow. At 3 p.m., the local paper ran a feature about me. From food truck to fortune, how Sarah Williams quietly built a $47 million real estate empire. The article named every property I owned, Azure Coast, Bella's, and several others. It detailed my charitable donations, my staff of over 400, and my reputation as one of the city's most discreet but powerful entrepreneurs. The phone calls turned frantic. My mother's voice cracked with shame. Sarah, people are calling me nonstop, asking why we never talked about your success. They're asking why we excluded you. They think we're jealous. You are, I said evenly. And now the whole world sees it. That night, as I sipped champagne from the private balcony of the presidential suite, I pictured them crowded into the cramped seaside inn, trying to hold together the illusion of success while the truth blazed across headlines and social media. For nearly a decade, I had been their invisible foundation. But now, stripped of my support and their illusions, the foundation had crumbled. And in its place, only one truth remained. The daughter they had dismissed as too poor had been the only one holding them up all along. But the final confrontation, face to face, was still to come. 2 days after Thanksgiving, I agreed to meet them. Not at the Seaside Inn, not at their homes, but at Azure Coast, my resort. When they arrived, their faces carried a mix of awe, shame, and desperation. The marble lobby gleamed around them, a reminder of the empire they had once dismissed as too ambitious for me to ever create. My mother was the first to speak, her voice soft but cracking. "Sarah, we're sorry. We were wrong about everything. We didn't see you. We didn't respect you. We let our pride blind us." I let the silence stretch. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore outside filled the space between us. "You didn't just blind yourselves," I said finally. "You blinded me. For years, I questioned my worth because you made me believe I was less than. I built this empire while you mocked me as a failure. I carried your businesses while you bragged about everyone else. And when the chance came to include me, you chose exclusion." Dad cleared his throat, guilt etched into his features. "We thought success looked one way. Law degrees, steady jobs, families. You never thought I could be the most successful of all," I finished. They nodded, eyes lowered. The shame was real. I leaned forward, voice steady but sharp. "This isn't about money. It never was. It's about respect. It's about love that isn't conditional on appearances or bank accounts. And that's why things have changed permanently. The financial support is gone, for good. If you want to rebuild with me, it will be as family, not as clients of my generosity." Mom's eyes brimmed with tears. "Can we earn that back?" "Maybe," I said. "But it won't be with words. It'll be with actions. Consistent, genuine actions." The room fell quiet again. For the first time in years, I felt the weight lift off my chest. This was no longer about proving myself. I didn't need their validation anymore. I had reclaimed my power. As I walked them out, my nephew Tyler hung back. "Aunt Sarah," he said shyly, "I think you're amazing. I want to learn from you." I smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. That's the kind of respect I'll always make room for. Later that night, I stood on the balcony of my suite, watching the sunset blaze across the ocean. For nearly a decade, I had been the hidden backbone of my family's success. Now, I was finally free of their shadows. And as the last light dipped below the horizon, one thought echoed in my mind. The best revenge isn't just proving them wrong. It is living so powerfully that their opinions no longer matter. And now I want to hear from you. What is the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen? Drop your story in the comments, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more unbelievable tales of betrayal, revenge, and justice served cold.